I was going to post a video on actual philosophy for once, but the Democratic Party just had to keep drawing attention to this pandering gimmick of theirs. For those of you who haven't heard, Amy Klobuchar has just removed herself from consideration for Joe Biden's vice presidential pick. For a little bit of context, Amy Klobuchar ran for the latest Democratic presidential nomination, probably more as a publicity stunt than anything else, so people would learn her name or something. Since inevitably dropping out, she's been a frontrunner for the Democratic vice presidential nomination for the past couple months. Now don't get me wrong, I'm glad Klobuchar's out, because she's just awful in every way. But it shouldn't have even come down to this anyway. See, the Democratic race was essentially between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders this whole time, with Elizabeth Warren lurking in the background and draining away potential Bernie votes. Bernie was the guy with an actual plan, but Biden had a different idea. Just use his established name to appeal to the widest possible audience. Biden basically built his brand on just three things. 1. Not being Trump. 2. Being the former vice president. And 3. He figured that no position is better than Trump's position. Why complicate things with actual ideas, right? So in order to pander to the greater masses, he decided to check as many identity boxes as possible without ostracizing any potential Republican voters. He was already male, and he already had the black vote basically locked down, so Biden decided to pledge to only nominate a woman for a vice presidential running mate. And so we get to today. In the wake of the death of folk hero and all-around saint George Floyd and the ensuing Black Lives Matter protests, there's been a lot of racial tension building up between black people and blue people. Amy Klobuchar must have figured she was too horrible for even Biden's standards, so on Thursday she decided to go out with a bang. Announcing that America should have a woman of color as vice president, she probably has just enough influence to make that a reality. And this game, where we need to check as many identity boxes as possible, is just stupid. Like, whatever happened to picking someone who's actually qualified for the job rather than someone you can use as a relatable stand-in for whomever you want to vote for you? Personally, I thought Cory Booker would have been the best choice for Biden. He's young-ish. He's got appeal across the aisle because his policies are fucking boring, but he's also acceptable for progressives. He's tall and pretty attractive and looks presidential enough. He isn't mired by scandals unlike some people, and he's an African American who speaks Spanish. He's the perfectly adequate candidate for a perfectly adequate presidency. But nope, he's too male, and we've got to punish him for his male privilege. Now, since we've narrowed the selection to women of color, which basically means a black woman, since blacks seem to have a monopoly on that label of color now, there's only so many possible picks. Basically, it's just Kamala Harris, or I guess, I don't know, Michelle, if Biden wants to keep going with the Obama 2.0 narrative. But here's the thing, Kamala Harris isn't a bad choice. She's kind of like a slithery figure who can fit whatever description you want her to, and could realistically win the presidency on her own merit. But now, if she's picked, she'll have that asterisk next to her name. Here's the thing. If you give someone an unfair advantage for unearned characteristics she was just born with, that's the literal definition of privilege. The very thing you Democratic pseudo-liberals claim to be fighting against. At the end of the day, the Democratic Party has to answer one key question. What is your goal? Is it just to reach as many milestones in representation as you can? Okay, so let's say Joe Biden kicks the bucket in his first term, and we now have our first woman of color in the White House. Time to dust off our hands because we fixed sexism and racism in America, right? No! All it really says is that voters would rather risk having a black woman in power than face another term of Donald Trump, arguably the least popular president in American history. Instead of a woman of color climbing to the top and proving she can do anything, you've instead merely decided to just put an undemocratically selected person on your shoulders and declared victory. When it comes at the cost of fully qualified candidates like Cory Booker, solely because of their skin color or the genitals between their legs, it becomes obvious. Contrived fairness is no fairness at all. Nothing can substitute for true equality. The Democratic Party cannot keep treating the symptoms rather than the disease. In an American system where one political party basically just appeals to racists and the other deepens divisions by pandering for votes, I find it hard to respect Biden's VP pick, whomever it ends up being. This process has been disrespectful to Cory Booker, it's disrespectful to the American people, and it's disrespectful to Kamala Harris, who frankly has built a vice presidential resume strong enough to stand on its own without some sort of crutch from Biden. How pitiful is it that our first female president had to be carried there by the old white guy whose opponent was Trump? If you really wanted equality, where every American citizen has the opportunity to rise to the top, you'd amend the Constitution to allow for naturalized citizens to run for president. Arnold Schwarzenegger said he would have run in 2016 as a Republican had he been born in America. And he would have won. By a landslide. Instead, we got a corrupt bigot in Trump who's not only reshaped the Republican platform, but given the Democrats' election day PTSD that caused Bernie his own presidency. The Democratic vice presidential pick will not be one of substance, but a hollow and calculated move concealed as a show of virtue for the gullible and the tribalistic. No true philosopher would ever take joy in the nomination of someone just because they are of the same skin color or genitals. But now, more than ever, we need to ask the question, what is your goal? For those of you who are still here and listening, I'd like to thank you for sticking through the whole thing with me. I'd like to hear more from you because I really don't get that many comments from my audience. What kind of content do you want to see? Do you want to see more political commentary like this, or do you want me to go and stick mainly to normal philosophy? If you like the music, check out the links in the description below for the free download for the Beyond Philosophy soundtrack. I'll have a few new songs coming out soon, and they will be integrated into the new videos going forward, so if you want to see this community and channel grow, please share these videos with your friends and your fake friends who just pretend to be your friend because it's online and all that stuff. Just share it with as many people as you can so we can start building a really great community here. Other than that, see you next time.
I'm and I approve this message.